All right, welcome everybody. My name is Steve Edwards, CEO here at Premier Virtual. I want to thank you for attending our webinar on how to host a successful virtual career fair. We have a great group of panelists here, being able from, outside of our company to also within our company so that you can ask questions. I'm going to be asking them a list of questions, but, before I get into introducing themselves, as you're out there putting on a virtual event, the two things that I want you to think about, and I'm sure Chris, Jamie, and Edward will be talking about this throughout the event, is one, to make a successful event is your setup. And the setup of it is first is to have the right platform that's out there. And yes, I'm with Premier Virtual, so I'm going to tell you that we're the easiest and we're the greatest out there, but there's certain people that want certain things with their platform out there. So as you're out there looking for a platform, make sure it does what you want it to do. Everybody's going to tell you, hey, we got all these bells and whistles. We got the greatest things out there. We're the greatest platform out there, but it doesn't really work for you as the host of the event. But also you want to think about your organizations and the attendees of the event. Are they tech savvy? Are they not tech savvy, right? How is that ease of use for them? So number one is that setup and that platform that you need to look for. And the second aspect is marketing of the event. And that's, some of the stuff that we're going to get into today is how do you make sure that you get organizations and attendees to participate in your virtual career fair. So without further ado, let's start out with Chris. Can you give a quick introduction of who you are, where you work, a little bit about you?
So my name is Chris Mills. I'm the local Veterans Employment Representative for the state of Massachusetts. I cover the entire state, working with employers to help them hire U.S. military, military spouses, and I also spearheaded the virtual job fairs here in Massachusetts. Yeah.
And Chris, what was the largest event you guys did up there in Massachusetts?
So we did a week-long virtual job fair, August 16th to August 20th. We had over 1,600 employers and over 17,000 job seekers.
1.3 million booth views during that event. So phenomenal, record-setting job fair. It was almost 1,700 companies on there. So, you guys did a phenomenal job on that. So thank you for being on panel today, Chris. Edward, a little bit about you.
Well, it's hard to try to follow Chris on that one, but I also am a local Veterans Employment Representative, but I am with the Commonwealth of Virginia, the Virginia Employment Commission. And basically, pretty much the exact same things that Chris said is what I work with here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. But pretty much we've also been tasked with working and help create a number of virtual hiring events, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Absolutely. And you guys actually had the record, of the largest event, and then, Massachusetts. I know you guys want that back. But that was what Chris did, right? That was a United States record for a job fair with the amount. So, but you guys in Virginia, you guys do a lot of phenomenal work there with not just veterans but everybody. And we all know that me being an Army veteran, helping veterans, really makes me feel good on that. And last but definitely not least, from our own customer success team here at Premier Virtual, Jordan has been with Premier Virtual from day one. As we were here and Jordan has moved with the company, has found a phenomenal role to be able to help you as organizations. We at Premier Virtual do this on a daily basis. You guys don't. So we have we built a team really for you, for the hosts, the organizations, attendees can reach out to our customer success team, not just get an email. So Jordan, give us a little bit about you.
Hi, well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jordan Ambers. I'm one of the client success managers at Premier Virtual. And basically, my job is to make sure that all the hosts are trained up on the system, know the ins and outs. I brainstorm with you on how to make your event successful, how to set up the lobby. Also, make sure that your organizations and attendees are trained and have a great understanding on the platform as well. But I am your point of contact, as well as one of our other client success managers to ensure that you have a great experience with Premier Virtual and successful events.
All right. Thank you, Jordan. And we love having you. The emails I get from you daily about you daily is always good to know that the organizations, the clients are happy with you. So let's get this started. Chris and Edward, this first question is for you. And we're going to start, from the organization side. When you set up your events, do you look at your job fairs or hiring events? Do you look at it as industry specific or have it where it's just a group of all different kinds of companies, or do you do a combination of both on your events? So let's start with you, Edward.
Well, pretty much we look at it as a combination of different types of events. We have obviously the variety of employers are all over the place, meaning, you've got the healthcare industry, you got the hospitality industry, and each needs a specific kind of attention. So, you've got to have, those keyed in specific industry specific events. Sometimes you have to target a particular demographic depending on what's necessary, depending on who you're working with. And you got to have the big overall events to get those large numbers. So, the bottom line is employers need people and people need employers. So we've been trying to just, kind of go with the flow based on what we get from our customers, both the job seeker and the employer.
I love that, right? I love how you said, people need employers and employers need people. I used to always say back, before I built Premier Virtual and built this virtual platform, I put on in-person job fairs for 9 years. So I knew the industry. And people ask, what do you do? I said, I'm a connector. I connect employers with candidates and I put them in a room so they can have a conversation. So, I love what you just said there because that, it hits home on, what I did for years. So, Chris, what about you? I know there were some emails that you guys sent out kind of talking about those events, the big event that you did, the record setting one, as well as a lot of smaller events. Can you kind of talk to us about how you set those up from an organization side?
Yeah, so with the giant statewide event that we had back in August, we actually learned a lot. During that week-long event, we tried to put in industry-specific days and then general job fair days. But we came to the realization now that, we're going to start doing statewide job fairs probably twice a year. And then when we start doing the industry specific job fairs, we're going to do that on a regional basis. And the regional areas will be able to use the labor market information that they have, and they know the companies that are in their areas. So that way we can specifically target towards just those industries that are in those areas, and then try to open that up statewide to say, hey, there's all these jobs for this industry here in this area. Let's try to pull in more people into that.
Okay, great. Jordan, before I get to you on this, I kind of want to, if everybody here is kind of thinking about, right, setting up a virtual hiring event, this is what I want everybody to do real quick is kind of close your eyes for a minute, right? And think about when you walked into an in-person virtual career fair, what did you see? You saw a bunch of companies that were there. And maybe you got a piece of paper and said, what companies were hiring for what. But a lot of people just saw a big group. But if you go to a job board, what does a candidate do? They click on a location in an industry. So it drives that candidate into a specific companies that are hiring. And if you think about setting up a virtual career fair, you want to think about that, right? From hey, if I'm a candidate and I'm doing a statewide job fair, I want to go into a location and then I want to go to an industry. And we'll have some organizations say, well, I don't want to do that industry because it only might have 4 or 5 companies that are in that industry. Well, would it be better to have that candidate come in and see those 4 or 5 companies and say, okay, I'm going to talk with all those 4 because those are the right industry that I want? Or if we just set up just a bunch of companies and you have 25, 50, 100 companies, and that candidate clicks on company 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they don't have any, they're going to leave. You want it efficient. Now, on the backside, what a lot of people don't think about is that recruiter. If that recruiter is looking to talk to people that are looking for an HR job and everybody who's coming in as an accounting, that recruiter is going to be not happy, right? They're going to, this isn't for me, right? It's the wrong type of industry. So you've got to think about it from the attendee side as well as the organization side, is how you are setting that up. So Jordan, can you talk a little bit about, when you're talking to companies and, we have people, that are attendees in this panelist that are national companies that are hiring just for them. We have workforce development boards, we have associations. So kind of as a whole, can you give us a step of what you do from kind of the questions you have to make sure to help them set it up?
So really when we're setting up the event, I always ask, how many, if it's a type of event where there's going to be multiple different organizations attending, I always ask, how many do you think you will have attending? And with Steve's point, as far as, the categories that are set up, whether that's by industry or by location, that has a lot to do with how many companies or employers that you have participating. So if you have anywhere between, 20 and up, 25 and up, I would definitely recommend having those categories. Makes it better for the attendees experience to be able to get to an either location where they're looking to work or an industry that they're looking to work in. Now, also for those who are just having an event for one specific company, there are ways that you can set up your event for departments that you're hiring within. So you can have different categories depending on if you're hiring within HR, if you're hiring within, maintenance, if you're hiring within sales, if you're hiring within, management, any departments that you have available, you can also categorize your lobby that way. So the recruiters on the other end have those attendees that are interested in the departments that are hiring. So we do have a bunch of different ways to, categorize your events to make sure that, on both sides for the organizations and the attendees that it's cohesive and it makes sense.
All right. Thank you, Jordan. Edward, now we kind of move from the organizations is you got the organizations from, right, industry specific or anything that getting the attendees there. What do you, right? And I know you work with kind of mainly just, on the workforce side, but what else do you do besides just your database of candidates to get attendees to attend the events?
Well, it ends up being a combination of partnerships, and that's what you got to really look at. Most major workforce development organizations, I know here in Virginia, we are more of a group of different agencies. So, known as the American Job Centers, if you use the federal government terminology, but it has different partners. So you kind of have to talk to your various partners. They have clients that would want to know. Plus, they also have their network chain, almost like the old school Head and Shoulders commercial. I told 2 friends, and then they told 2 friends, and so on and so on and so on. But then another thing that actually worked out with partnerships is touching base with the local entities that work with the organizations and the job seekers, because both will have their own resources because they want to promote themselves during it also. So you could kind of get that going from both ends. So not just touching your available candidates, but also those companies distributing it among their own employees, because sometimes people move out, move up, and, good organizations take care of their people. So that's how.
Absolutely. So you see, right? It's partnerships, and I love that because so many people think, well, I can only advertise in this one place, and I guarantee if everybody on here thinks about how you posted your jobs and how you recruited in 2019 is different than how you recruit in 2021. Right. I don't put 2020 in there because so many people weren't hiring and it was such a crazy time with COVID. But what you did 2 years ago doesn't work the same today. So you have to think about, right? I put a poll out on LinkedIn yesterday and it was about, have you adapted to your technology to the new recruiting strategies? Right? Was it yes, I've been thinking about, or we have implemented. We're thinking about it. We've implemented some, we need more, or no, we haven't yet, right? So when you think about how do you attract candidates, Edward, you hit it on the head, partnerships, getting out there, right? If you're a national company and, we're looking at it here, let's say you're a large corporate company in Boca Raton, Florida, and you're going to do a national hiring event for all of your locations across the United States. Well, when you look into those local areas, right? Yes, you can, post some marketing on there, but your local schools as well, your alumni associations, your veteran associations, all of those people out there can now get you the people, the tech associations. Here in South Florida, we have a great organization, Tech Hub. Well, you can get information out to them and it can go out to this. Use the resources around you. Don't only just think about job boards on there is how you can get it out. It's getting your name because your name is your brand, right? Even on LinkedIn, like I tell my team, LinkedIn is not about the Premier Virtual brand. It's you. Jordan has her own brand. John has his own brand. Jason has his own brand. Jamie has his own brand, right? They have a brand that's out there as well. And Edward, you also said, right? Because, people move on. Right. So that person that you talk to today, maybe they're an attendee today. Well, maybe they go to an organization where they're going to be an organization that you might not have worked with before as well at that event. So awesome. Chris, what about you? Right. I know, again, I know a lot of the data about what you guys did for the big event, but outside of just kind of the workforce, and actually before you go outside the workforce, tell me a little bit about within the workforce. What do you guys do to attract candidates? Because I think, we work with, almost 200 workforce development boards across the country now, and everybody does things just a little bit different, from the emails to calls to everything. How do you attract candidates to your events within kind of the workforce system? So
within our workforce system, we absolutely work with all of our WIOA partners. So Department of Transitional Assistance, Mass Rehab Commission, Mass Commission for the Blind. We collaborate all of those together to try to draw more job seekers in that way. Additionally, for our veteran representatives that we have in the state, Massachusetts has a lot of collaborations as well that are partner organizations, outside organizations, nonprofits, things of that matter that really focus on the veteran community. And so we always pass the information along to them, along with our HVRP partners, to really try to pull in as many people as possible. And now for the future, we're actually looking at an additional resource of using text message technology to get information out there and get these job postings out there to these people. Okay, text messaging is so important, and that's why, one of the reminders that we built into the system is a text message reminder, because we know how text messages, are so important. Staying on the candidate side, but Jordan, the reminders. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the reminders and, why they're sent out throughout the Premier Virtual platform?
Yes. So on the attendees end, we do have reminders that are sent out through the system. For those who do register, they can receive notifications. Well, first they receive, thank you for registering type of welcoming email. Then, 24 hours before your event is set to open up, go live, they receive a reminder. And also, if once the event is starting, they receive a reminder as well. And if they have not logged in, they also receive another reminder. And these are great to just keep that participation for events up. We know that has been a struggle, I guess, in the couple months back, just getting people to participate after registration. So these notifications really help out to keep those attendees on track, because everyone has life outside of attending events and things like that. So we always try to make sure that we have those notifications just to remind them that, hey, this is happening. Make sure you tune in.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jordan. In the reminders, I always say, marketing a successful event on a platform that is user friendly is great. But what about those candidates? How many times, and think about today, is if that reminder didn't pop up on your calendar, would you have remembered about the webinar today? And some of you, probably most of you that are on here would say, yep, I remember that. But how many of you, if it's not on your calendar, doesn't show up and you don't think about it? Me, I'll tell you, as the CEO of this company, I have my two biggest pet peeves in life are people interrupting. And two, if somebody sends me a calendar invite, puts it on something onto my calendar and it doesn't have a reminder popped up. I go from call to call to call all day long, and I've missed a lot of calls. The only calls I miss, though, are the ones that there's a reminder not on there. And somebody puts something on there, I'll hit accept. I don't go then into the calendar and put a reminder. If you send a calendar invite and there's not a reminder, hopefully I don't miss it, but those are the ones that I miss. So what we did is we wanted to take off of you, the organization, and the host, the reminders. Instead of downloading, we built it in for you. So to make it easy, right? It's automatic in the system. These candidates know, hey, they get a text message when the event goes live. If they haven't logged in, there's an hour left, they get it, because we want to take that off of you. Again, you have a lot more to do during the day of the event than to send out emails of people to log in on there. So, Chris, I'm going to start with you on this question. If you could tell anybody, right, like the secret sauce or something special that you think is let's say the top three things when they're looking at, hosting an event, what do you think would be those things?
I think the top one that I've recently learned, and that's extremely, extremely helpful, is the ability to make employers pending, and that we have to approve the employers coming in. One of the things that we found with the statewide is that we had asked all the companies to post a job. Due to the nature and the pure volume of companies that we had, not all companies posted a job. In a recent job fair that I just did, we were able to make the companies in that status so that we had to approve them. So then I required them, hey, you need to post jobs on here. Otherwise, I can't let you in, because we want the job seekers to see what jobs you have. We want them to apply to your jobs. So we're doing you a favor to make sure that you are at 100%, not just, trying to, make it hard for everybody else, so that's one of the things. I think one of the other things is, and Edward's going to laugh at me when I say this, because don't try to do a week-long job fair ever again. Too many things going on, too much. It was absolutely crazy. Start small, go small, you keep it small and compact for your first time. And then as you start to, learn how to use the programs, how to adapt and how to change things, then you can start making your events larger and larger and larger.
All right. Thank you, Chris. I was surprised to hear you say don't do a week-long one, but we know we can go back to my thoughts on it. So just for everybody, I just got a message from, somebody trying to get on. There's AWS issues today. So if you guys haven't seen this, AWS is having some issues in a few of their markets. So it could be affecting you guys logging in. So if you can't log in or one of your team members can't log on, we are going to be sending out a copy of this recording as well, just because we're having that, right? Like we know this as we watch our, the servers on everything, and you got to love technology. Even AWS and Zoom have issues sometimes. So just want to put that out there in case somebody's texting them say that they can't get in, part of their team members. So Edward, what is your secret sauce? What do you guys think, or what do you think is if you were sitting down with somebody when they're looking at hosting an event, what do you think it would be?
Well, it really all depends. I know I just recently administered a veterans event. We did where we had a component of it was in person, but another component was the virtual part, the highly visited portion of it due to restrictions. What we ended up doing was it really ended up being getting certain little educational portions out, working with our account manager for training and things such as that. But also what we've been doing is during the events, we set up, pardon my military terminology, but we use a war room. So we give the job seekers and the employers a place that they can go where they can ask questions if they're having issues getting into the event. And then if we can't resolve it locally, then we escalate it up to you guys, which we found that works out so well. So when I have an event, on the day of the event, we'll have our partners, everyone that's involved, sitting in a little Zoom room or Google Meet or Microsoft Teams room off to the side, fielding phone calls and emails for anybody that's having difficulty to get into the event. And we found out that just ramped up participation, because a lot of times people get discouraged if they can't figure it out, if they're having, and it's a nice little segue from what you just said about getting into an event. Hey, they get frustrated and like, oh, I can't do this. No, you can do this because it's worth it. Let's go ahead and talk you through it and get you in there, because once you get in the door, it's easy.
Gotcha. Yeah. And what you said there, right? The war room. I'll tell you, most of the organizations, and the first time I heard that was actually CareerSource in Palm Beach County. And I had a call with them, and you just saw everybody in the room. They're there. They're, making sure that everybody from their organizations understand it, right? And they know, right? Even though we got the back end of our team here as well, they're prepared for it, right? And that's with anything too is, a lot of people unfortunately think, hey, we're going to have a virtual event. We build it, they'll come. So it's not that, right? Is there's going to be people out there, and sometimes there's going to be people that, maybe aren't tech savvy, right? And they're going to have questions on this issue and something like that. So great thing is talking about that. And I don't care if it's a workforce development board or a private organization out there, right? You have the same thing. So again, if you're an organization and you're at your corporate level and you have your recruiters and stuff like that, the leadership should be able to know and go in and see kind of what's going on, right? Look at the live dashboard, see kind of the stats, be able to, talk with the other recruiters to say, hey, what's going on? And maybe, the great state of Wisconsin is a really busy event for this national recruiting. And they're really busy, but then you have Minnesota that's really slow. So maybe you want to move recruiters around or something like that. So you can be able to have that, because, you got to be able to bob and weave sometimes based on where candidates are going to be, on there as well. So Jordan, from you, when, call it let's say a first time host of an event, give me 3 questions that kind of they ask and you to help them through? What are the main three questions that you feel that when an organization is setting up an event or anything about an event, what do they ask you?
When setting up, they have questions about the organization's, experience, and want to make sure that it works for them, and that it's easily, they're easily able to maneuver within the system. They're always asking questions about, what is the interaction like for organizations. The biggest question is, how do our recruiters within organizations, kind of check in with each other and make sure things run smoothly. And one of the great features that we do have is called the internal chat feature. That enables, the users of the organization within the platform to communicate with each other, to be able to tell, let's say, Steve's part of my organization, tell him, hey, Edward has some questions. I'm not really sure how to answer those. Can you hop into that conversation and, assist Edward with his questions? So they're able to, help each other out and communicate throughout the events, which is great. Another question I'll have is, how do we make sure we have, how do we make sure we have our brand out there, or, whomever is kind of the highlighted organization, if it is an individual type of event, how do we make sure we have a lot of, branding for either us or that organization? We have a lot of opportunity for that in our platform, with the registration page set up. You have complete customization in creating the registration page images. The lobby is completely customizable with an image that you can provide either for your organization or for, a sponsor or others. And then there's an event banner as well that creates great branding opportunity, as well as customizable category graphics. And maybe the last question would be the ease of use. And, how easy is it to use? What does the registration process look like? How easy is that going to be? Because we want to make sure that people are able to, they're not deterred from registering to the event from the platform technology. And I can always answer that question with certainty, how easy our platform is to use. We have the setup wizards that are phenomenal. I'm sure Chris and Edward can both attest to with the new system. There are a lot more 100% completed booths now, than there were, previously. So we just have a very, easy to use software, for everyone, for the host and organizations and attendees as well. So those would be the three most questions I receive.
Okay, great. Thank you on that. Right. So, right, we talked about ease of use. That's so important to everybody. I see Chris shaking his head on that. Is when organizations, when they look at it, how easy is it to use, right? How effective, right? Because easy to me means how effective it's going to be. But Edward, we talked kind of about the front end setting it up, right? But the back end, what do you do with the reports, right? So the value of the reporting that you have, how do you look at that and what do you do with it? Chris, I'm asking you next. So I'm giving you time to think on this one.
Well, some of the great things about the reports, on the front end, basically the feature that we're able to add questions that the job seekers. So we find it easy for us to add specific questions that allow us to sort the specific data inside of the system. So we ask things like, what's your zip code? And obviously with the military veteran piece, are you a military veteran? Have you registered in your local workforce system? Because of how we have to distribute the information about the job seekers to specific individuals. And even a private company, if they were doing this one-on-one, they can break it down per their different organizational needs. Then on the back end, it allows for us to do follow-up. And that's the great part about the follow-up, because a lot of the people that we recommend to participate in these fairs, they're case managed individuals, people that the various partners are working with one-on-one to help find employment. So what happens? We want to know who they applied to. We want to know where they stand. So to be able to get that report to see which booth did they visit, who did they give a resume to, and then pair that up with our systems of tracking, our systems of managing and helping the people, that worked out real great.
Okay, great. So reporting, right? So you have the front end, which you really touch on, that is the questions. I love questions when you're setting up an event, because you can ask, right? They're customizable. Like you asked, what's their zip code, right? So if you're starting to get a lot of people in a certain zip code, hey, this is something you could help with. Or, think about, hey, what's your zip code? What type of job are you looking for? Well, all of a sudden, if you have in a certain zip code and a lot of people looking for a certain job, hey, you know what? This is a good thing to use this data to now go after organizations that are hiring for that type of people and say,
Correct.
hey, I got a lot of people. So you can use that data. So I love that you do the questions, right? Those are important, right? But two, in using that data as well. So Chris, what about you? How do you use that data?
So I'm going to agree with Edward on the questions, because absolutely those questions can be huge. How you ask a question, especially with the job seekers, to try to break down where they are. If they want to receive, information from the career centers, if they want to receive further updates, whatever. The other part that I like though too is the jobs report. And I like that because now after an event, I can go back to the company and say, hey, here are the following people that applied for the positions that you posted on the virtual platform. Where do we stand with them? What is their status? Have they been interviewed? Are they in the interview process? How is this happening? Because that is huge for us, because we want people to get employed. We want people to find jobs, and we want to be able to supply the companies with qualified candidates, and find out how they fit and how it's working out for them. And then hopefully they come back as a return customer for another virtual job there.
I love it, right? What I love about that report too is you touch base, right? The jobs reports. So what I like is, I like to take the jobs report and then take the event report and kind of put it together, right? And send an individual email, say ABC Mortgage, here's how many people attended your booth or visited your booth. Here's how many chat messages. Here's how, all of that information. And then here are the people that submitted their resumes to you. Let me know who you hired, because that's the data. Yes, Chris.
So one more touch on that part, Steve, as well, is when we did the statewide, we were able to look at companies that, had, X amount of visits from job seekers, and we had a few companies that had no other job seekers, because we had a massive amount of companies. So then we were able to take those few companies, let's say it was 25, 30, whatever, put them into a separate group and make them featured employers. So now we can adjust fire and be able to assist those employers that were not being recognized, that got mixed, that got blended into the mix, whatever, and make them a targeted focus group on the next day and the day after.
I love that, Chris. Yeah, and that's right. You guys did that. As if a company doesn't have it, right, move them to the top, move them to the features, right? You guys created a whole nother feature. Again, this is based on how customizable it is to be able to move companies around into wherever. So Jordan, following up kind of on what, Chris talked about on there. Can you just talk real quickly on setting up a category and kind of how that works and from a category to a subcategory and talk about that for a minute?
Absolutely. So when creating, the categories within your event, it's very easy. Just click the add button, place your category title in there, and a customized image if you'd like to. We have no, limitations on how many categories you can have. You can also have subcategories within a category. So what Steve was talking about earlier when he was saying, you can have locations, and then within locations, you can also have industries. You can do that, with the subcategories. So let's say we have, Broward County, one of the counties within in Florida, it's a workforce board, and they have, all the available industries that Broward County is hiring for. You can create a subcategory. We've seen a lot of that with, with even the schools and school systems or universities that use our platform, where they'll have a category of industries, and then they'll have a subcategory of the majors, or vice versa. They have the majors, and then they'll have the categories of the industries within those majors that they can look through in career fairs. So completely customizable. You can switch it up however you'd like.
Absolutely. And the good thing too about that is when you're putting a company out there, and again, I have some workforce development boards, some associations, everybody has something different. But if you think about a booth, right? And Chris talked about, right, some of the booths didn't have, organizations didn't have a lot of views. So they moved it up. So if you're an organization, an association, a college, or anything like that, and you monetize these virtual, there's a whole lot of place. If you're an organization that monetizes virtual career fairs, you should never have to pay anything for a virtual event, because there's so many places that you can monetize and put sponsors and different things in that it pays for itself right off. But if you think about that booth, if you have a company that wants that top spot, right? I like to call it's the top left spot there, because as soon as they come in, that's the first one that most people see in their eyes. You can monetize it, or you can move it in, or maybe that is the biggest hiring event or the biggest hiring need in your local area. You want to move it into the top. So people are going in and they're seeing that booth immediately when they come in. So Edward, did you have a question or a point there you want to talk about?
Yes, it kind of goes to something that came through the Q&A to me, is you gotta what's the best way for me to put it? Give me a second. I got to refresh my mind, because you kind of keyed into it. It's basically about that top spot. So what I found out is sometimes you may want to separate, especially if you're having multi-company events, separate the larger companies from the smaller companies, because you'll get some companies that'll say, oh, I'm not getting traffic, I'm not getting people visiting my booth. That's where you, as a manager of these particular events, have to kind of say, maybe I want my big, well-known companies in a separate event from the mom and pop businesses. That way everybody gets to reap the benefit of using the software, because sometimes it's real difficult for your large organizations that get TV airtime and all this stuff every day to compete with the small store around the corner that probably has a quicker route to getting a person hired.
Yeah. Oh,
go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, and I was going to say just a great point off what Edward had mentioned. When you do get that feedback, either, during the event and, kind of been sitting here and there's not a lot of action, as a host, you can go into those reports as well. In the event report, you can see exactly which booths have exactly how much traffic they've had, how many booth visits they've had, and you could go right into that event and move them, accordingly. If you see someone, that, registered late, so they're kind of towards the bottom of the event and they're not having much traffic, look at that report, see they've had a couple of visits, and you can move them up. So yeah, great point you made there, Edward.
Yeah, and another thing too is, John, I'm reading your question here, that you bring employers into one place first and get to speak. So back when I did in-person job fairs for 9 years, that's what I did, is I would actually bring all of my employers, had it in a separate room. All of my candidates were in a theater style room next to it. Then I would bring in, the companies would come into the candidate room, and each one of them would say, here's who we are, here's what we do, here's what we're hiring for, and here's why you should come work for us. So it would drive candidates to the right aspect of who they're at, because so many job fairs, again, it's just a group and there's efficiency. There's always going to be some companies that get more traffic than others, right? Like the Macy's or an Amazon or a Google. They're going to get more traffic, even though, and this is at an in-person or virtual, is Google is going to get more traffic than ABC IT company. Maybe ABC IT company has a better job, better leadership role, better everything than the other company, but people know, and Edward, you talked about it, right? It's the TV, people see that, right? I like to say they would see a long line, they wait in that long line, it's that shiny fish, they're waiting, they wait in line give them their resume and say, hi, I'm looking for a HR job. And they're like, sorry, we're in accounting, and you got to go into the next run. So, John, one thing that I would say, kind of based on your question is, I really built this platform because of those, right? Because people had empty rooms. And if you set it up in the beginning the right way first, where candidates can come in, they're going to look at an industry. So when they look at an industry, and if there's only 4 or 5 companies in there, we've had some industries that might only have 2 or 3 companies in there. Those candidates are going to go in, they're going to talk to them. And the best thing too is when you look at, with our platform, we have something called the broadcast message system. So if you go in and you pull this report and all of a sudden ABC Mortgage is not getting a lot of views, and you take them and you move them suddenly to the top, you can now broadcast a message out to the group to say, ABC Mortgages are, featured employee of the hour, come see their great jobs that they have listed. All of the candidates are going to get a message within the system, and they'll see that. And now you can drive more traffic. Like Chris moved them all to the top as featured employers. This is taking it to the next level of putting them into a broadcast message. So, all right. So, we're kind of, almost done to wrap it up here in the next 3 minutes. Is there any questions from the attendees out there that you want Edward, Chris, or myself or Jordan to answer before we kind of go into the next phase? Any questions on how to host, set up, market, anything about virtual events? All right, well, we're waiting to see if anybody does. I want to talk too is, really, we talked about it, briefly, but marketing of an event. Okay. When you market a virtual career fair, I think Edward probably said it best on here is everywhere, right? Your partnerships, you're there, Chris, it can't just be one thing. You can't just advertise on Indeed or ZipRecruiter or Facebook or Instagram or, now TikTok. You can't just advertise on one place. You have to kind of look at everything that is out there and put money out. When I have an organization and we don't handle, the marketing, but we have marketing partners. So if anybody is ever saying, hey, we want to host an event, but we need help marketing that event, hey, we can set up calls with my marketing department who does a strategy call with you to kind of look at where you're looking to host your event, how many, cities, how many industries, how many jobs, whatever. Is it from an individual company that's doing a national hiring event? Is it an individual company that wants to have a weekly hiring event, for their company that kind of, we call it our 24/7 virtual hiring room, is where, they have it open 24/7, and every Wednesday from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock, they have live recruiters that are there and candidates can come in, to associations that want to have large virtual career fairs. If you want help on marketing, we can help you with our partners, that we can help set that up for you so that you can understand, we can understand what you want, what's kind of your goal, and to be able to, get you that event. If you come in and say, Steve, you have an amazing platform. My platform works, but you don't want to put any money into marketing. I don't care who it is out there. I don't care if it's Amazon. Just having events and not marketing it, not promoting it, is not going to be successful for you. If you're a national company and you're looking to do a national hiring event, all of your recruiters should be posting on LinkedIn, should be posting in groups. If you're an association, you should be posting in groups. Every, we'll use, where we're at down in South Florida, Boca Raton, Delray Beach. How many local groups are in those areas? Boston, Virginia, how many local groups that you can post in, hey, we have an event going on. That advertising, guess what? Doesn't cost you anything. I'm giving that to you, right? Is now some of this pay for play, right? But another thing to also think about is, news, right? Think about the news, right? Is, hey, we're having an event in this area at this time, and we have X amount of jobs that's coming out there. Some companies will put the names of the companies that are having events. Some put the job titles, right? Everybody does something a little bit different, but you need to be able to promote it. And a lot of the promote comes within. If, an organization is hosting an event and you have 50 companies, hey, go to their Twitter, like that, make sure that they're attached to it. Say, hey, great to have, at ABC Mortgage attending our, Massachusetts statewide job fair. Now they're going to see it, and then they can retweet it, resend a message in Instagram and that, right? You are now getting this advertising out for them, right? So that you're helping, or they're helping you market this event, because not everybody, you have a reach. But if you think of all your organizations and all your recruiters' reach, how big does that reach really get to? So, all right. So there's a question in the chat. How would you suggest hosting a virtual hiring event for micro jobs for a startup that is scheduled to launch next summer? So to me, the first thing that you want to look at, before I answer that, Edward, Chris, do you want to touch on that question? Because I know my number one answer is to get with the local workforce development board to start. That's my number one answer. So, but besides that, what would you suggest for them?
Also, the thing is also look at your time frames. You're also thinking about starting something. You're talking next summer. People are on a short suspense and availability. I mean, hey, let's be honest. People are looking for work now, and people who are looking for work want work now. So you want to get your plan straight, get your job description straight, get all of the P's and Q's done. And then roughly about, and if from my aspect, if it was working with me, anywhere from about 90 days out, let's start putting everything together and start with that advertising, like Steve was saying, through different channels. And you're going to have to invest, because this is going to be big for you. And you would probably want to do an event on your own. But, and when I say do it on your own, like Steve said, I'm a promote, work with your local workforce organization, and that can get you the people in addition to getting the word out there among everybody that can probably seed your company in addition to your advertising dollars.
Yeah, my thought. Sorry, Steve. So my thought, right there with Edward as well. 90 days out, start, advertising it, start putting all your P's and Q's together. But, the other thing too is look at your labor market information as well. Look at other companies that are around you that have similar jobs. Okay. Because here's the thing is that if you have one job, and I'll use this as an example. Okay. If you have security jobs, okay, and as security guard, you're offering $13.50 an hour. Okay. Well, if you're not doing your labor market information and you're not looking at what other companies are doing or surrounding you, you might be surprised to find out that, company X, company Y, and company Z are all starting at anywhere between 17 to 25 an hour. You're not going to see the people that you want to see. So taking a look at that labor market information, really focusing on what's going on there. I will tell you from the state of Massachusetts, for our marketing, for our statewide that we had done, we had spent about $1.3 million on marketing, but that included networks, included radio, Sirius XM, and then we went on TV, and we had all the TV networks for the Boston area, Metro West, the Worcester area, the western part of the state. But then we also got a little bit smart, and we also bought a package to broadcast our event at all of the Red Sox games the week leading up to the event. So the Boston Red Sox promoted the event live on the Jumbotron at all their Red Sox games, and that really it helped out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chris. I'm glad you mentioned that, right? Talking about the Jumbotron and stuff like that. I forgot about that. You got to go out there. So yes, Chris.
Yeah. So, and one other thing that we had done is we had actually got the governor of Massachusetts, and you can still go up there, and it's still up there. It's on YouTube. He created a YouTube video talking about our event, our week-long event. It's only about a minute and 20 seconds long, but having him broadcast it, and then it went out to his network as well, and that's huge.
Love that, Chris. And that can be done at a state level, but think about it as well. And this kind of goes for the person that asked about the startup, to any company out there. Imagine if you're a, Canon USA, the CEO of Canon USA sends a video and says, thank you, for attending the virtual hiring event for Canon. That shows a lot about an organization that your CEO cares, right? Maybe it's not the CEO, maybe it's a VP, maybe it's there, but somebody took their time and cared, especially, right? We know a lot, right? With the great resignation and people are leaving jobs and stuff like that. They're leaving because of culture, right? People are going to places, maybe they want to work remote. Maybe, they want to be able to say, hey, I want to only work from home. Or maybe, there's people that say, hey, I want to get back to the office. Maybe some people will say, hey, when I want to go work for a place that I get to wear a t-shirt every day. Or, hey, I want to dress up and I want to go there. So people are doing that. They have that culture. Making those videos about that event too is huge. That doesn't take any time. And it doesn't have to be a big production piece, on there. So, the Massachusetts, that was the second governor who did a video about an event that was on our platform. So that's very, very strong. It's out there. So any other, all right, there's one more question. Edward mentioned plans for the hiring the right people for the right company. What are some examples and what were the results of examples of those plans? I think it's probably talking about, to me, maybe industry specific, Edward. I don't know if you saw it the same way.
Well, when you say the right people for the right company, it's also tapping back into that labor market and seeing what their needs are. Some of those companies, hey, I need a help desk person to work my IT. Okay, well, that's great, but is it junior? Is it senior? Having those descriptions really, that you could kind of help the organizations go over before they post it in the event or before your event goes live really, really helps. Company atmosphere, once they fill out all the information inside the application, links to their website, links to their social media, links to, all the things that you provide in the company profile inside of these virtual events, it's just like being at an in-person event where you've got all your memorabilia sitting right there where people can actually research who you are and what you do. It's really about your recruiters knowing what to look for and how to leverage it. A lot of and this is just speaking from a state workforce, role, we have training. So if if you've got, hey, I've got these IT help desk jobs, but I only need entry level. Well, wait a minute. There's training available. And if you find the right person, but they don't have the right credentials, nowhere to go. So it's that back and forth, putting that investment into what you're looking for and working with people to help build it up. And the majority of us, we're providing, access to these platforms, putting together to these events. We're here to help.
All right. Thank you. Another question that was in the chat is, do you have info or is there a site that you can get the labor market information, or is that kind of reaching out to your local workforce development board to get that?
So for us internally, we use Burning Glass for a lot of our labor market information. We also have access to Dun and Bradstreet. which can be extremely helpful as well. But you can reach out to your local labor, your local workforce boards, even your local career centers, and all of the BSRs that work in the career centers usually have access to labor market information.
And you can also go to your economic development associations and the such, and they'll be able to provide that. I know that also our Virginia Community College system does that also. So, you know, you could get it from a myriad number of places. You know, start at the Department of Labor and work your way down to tailor it for your area.
Thank you guys both about it. You know, I just realized we're at 3:01. We went a little over the time on here, and I didn't get to really show anything. I'm still going to show a couple little things that are on here if people want to stay on. But you know, Chris, Edward, thank you so much. You know, and Jordan for participating in this panel today. I'm sure people got some great information. You know, from here, we're going to be sending out a copy of the video to everybody. Chris, Jordan, you know, Edward, if you guys want to jump off. Anybody else wants to stay up? I'm just going to show you a couple quick screenshots of what the platform is that we talked about today. So, and if anybody wants any more information from one of my team members, you can shoot a message to us about, right, a strategy call. Maybe it's marketing. Maybe it's just to find out a little bit more about virtual events, you know, 15, 20-minute strategy call. If you want a full demo of our platform, we would be happy to do that for you as well, so that you can go in and see kind of how it can work for you, right? And that's what you need to be able to really see is how does this platform work for you, right? COVID forced a lot of people into virtual, but virtual is here to stay. How are you using this technology to really help you, from individual companies doing national hiring events to weekly hiring events, to associations doing hiring events, to states doing statewide job fairs? Virtual leaves everything open for everybody out there. So Chris, did you have something?
Yeah, I have a real good closing thought for you, Steve, is that I've been talking to a lot of employers and they would prefer now to do virtual events than in-person events, because now it's saving the employer money because they don't have to pay for the transportation of their staff. Not only that, but then they don't have to buy tchotchkes either.
Saving money, right? Everyone wants to
Saving money.
Right? I always looked at it like this because I love that. I'm going to take it a step further. Is if you think about a job fair, what happens? Your organization, the recruiter or manager who's ever going has to get in the car, has to drive. If they're anywhere where there's traffic, they're going to be stuck in traffic to get to the job fair. They're out of the office all day. They tear down the office or they tear down the event. Maybe they go back to the office. Do they actually work the rest of the day? But how much time was lost getting all of that set up? Where virtual, they just log in 5 minutes before the event, right? But it's a cost, especially traveling. If you're going outside, hotel rooms, flights, gas, all of that stuff. And attendees, right? This is a big reason I came up with Premier Virtual, right? As attendees would rather apply online than wait in line. And they didn't want to, right? They don't have to be sitting there all day, right? They can have their party up top, or business up top, party down below, right? They could be sitting there in a pair of shorts with something on there for the virtual interview. So again, thank you guys, you know, for all of that. And I'm going to share my screen now and show you just a couple little things that we talked about today. Okay, so what this is right here is what you're seeing is the live dashboard. So this shows how many organizations have registered, how many have visited the event, how many attendees registered, how many attendees visited. And I know somebody's going to say, how can that number be higher? It's because me as a super admin and my team, we have ghost mode. So we don't have to register for an event so we can go in. So it shows that we, you know, attended the event, but it shows the total chat messages. When people submit their resumes, you see how many resumes, and this is all live time. So if you have somebody that's, you know, one of your boss, right, that's maybe in the war room or somewhere else, they can log in and they can see all the live stats of what's going on, you know, within an event. And then you see how many people are active. And then we have a button in there. If an interview is scheduled or if they hired somebody, they can push that button. So it's really good, right, for individual companies or workforce development to kind of track that stuff, right? As long as somebody hits it, just like a CRM, right? As long as somebody hits a button or puts the information in, all of that is attached. You know, in the end, this to me, and this is what, you know, Edward and Chris were talking about, is the reports. these are the reports after the event that you can have, and you can pull these anytime during the event. Is you can pull this information and you can see how many booths it visited, right? It shows you all of the data. How many people have chatted? How many messages are in there? How many booths they visited? And then it breaks it down by company. So you have all of that information as well right within the system. And then you have, creating the event. This is, what we talked about is easy. You create an event in 3 easy steps. Putting your data in, registration, managed category. And you heard, Edward and Chris talk about the questions. Here's where you can add your questions. And this is, to me, is probably the second most important thing as you're in there, is because you want to know what those candidates are, right? You can ask yes or no questions. You can ask text inputs, multiple choice questions. You could put in all different kinds of things in here, right? So that you can have this, right? Edward said, we sort the data, right? Analytics and data are key within the platform. I mean, down to small things like you want to create your lobby. You can, choose from a list that's in here that we have a lobby, or if you want to put your company logo in the back of there, you can do that. Here's information just on early access, when the event starts, and, do you want candidates to come in and be able to chat directly with them, or do you want them to maybe see information before the event starts so they know who they want to talk with? You can make resumes mandatory, not mandatory. And then we talked about the email notifications, right? So these are all of the notifications. And let's just say you don't want to send one out, you can uncheck it. But we make it very efficient so you don't have to do any of that. You're setting up your registration. This is all customizable. So this is where I talked a little bit about monetizing some of the information that is out there. You can monetize and you could put company logos in here. Or even if you don't monetize, you could say, here's a list of the companies, here's a list of the jobs that are going to be in here and why. When that candidate gets to the page, why should they register for this event? You can have, you can put videos in here, right? This is the video that Chris talked about where he put the, the governor's video that was on there. You can have all that information. And then organizations, right? For organization register event, you can create something special for them as well. You can have your YouTube videos. You can put in your Facebook pixel and your Google Tag Manager so that you have all of that information when you are to find out where you're marketing and all of that information. And then here, this to me, the number one most important thing about setting up an event is your categories. You are driving your candidates to the right companies, and your companies are seeing the right people. When companies are not, I used to, have somebody that if, we would get my job fairs that I put on, we were always very industry specific, but sometimes somebody would see it and they would come out, and a lot of times it was in the HR industry. And they'd go up to all of the companies and say, I'm looking for an HR job. Well, if it was a sales job fair and they were looking for an HR, the company's like, we're not looking for that. So, then the companies would be like, hey, I had somebody from HR. Right? They only had one HR person and they had a couple hundred of the other ones, but they remembered that HR person because it wasn't the right fit. So being able to create your categories to drive the candidates here is the most important thing that is in here. So, and you have your dashboard that's in here. On your lobby, this is where you're coming. You can see your industry. You can click on an industry, right? So now we went from, right, I clicked on industry. Now I'm clicking on the industries that I want to go to. So I can click into a company. I can then click into an organization as you see all of that information. From here, if you see this booth that's back here, these are all, we have almost 100 different booths with avatars that you can choose from. So you can customize what you want your booth to look like from a booth view, a lobby view, construction view, anything that's out there. We have different avatars in there. So you can choose your avatar. This about us, this is what each company puts in there, what they showcase about their company. So a candidate can come in, I'm going to come in here to a different one. It maybe has some job postings. So if you see here, they have the About Us, they have the job postings here, and these are all customizable links. You say what you want and you post it to where you want. So if you want to show your culture, you want to show anything about your company, this is where you showcase all this information. And then you come in here, they can put all their social media links. So really what a candidate can do is a candidate can come in, see what a company does, then they can see the jobs, submit their resume if they're excited about a job. So they can see their job, they can submit their resume, they can choose their resume. Now, here's the great thing that we put into the platform is, at a job fair, most people have a generic resume and they may have a generic cover letter. Well, what we allow them to do is they have their resume, but let's say they see their dream job on here and they want to put a cover letter specifically for that company. They can create that cover letter. They could take that resume, change kind of the way that they want it to, and they can upload a specific resume for a specific company. So they can choose that. If they're, if they're a software engineer and they have a software engineering resume as also as a web design, they could have them both uploaded into the system so they could choose which one they want. So it's very customizable from an organization or from a candidate standpoint of view. Then they can chat. So if somebody was in here, I could send a message and I could start chatting. From there, the organizations could actually start a video interview with me right there. So we have a built-in video platform that is in the system so that organizations can now do video interviews immediately within the system. And candidates, all the analytics, the candidates actually have a thing called their My Journey within the platform. So it tracks who they visited, who they chatted with, which companies that they left notes on, which companies that they have a status. Are they interested in this? If they want to rank the companies, they can see all of that. So most job candidates, right, they go to a job fair. As soon as that job fair is over, they forget what they did. Who did I submit my resume to? What did I do? We track it all for them so that they have all of the data. So that's kind of it. A quick, 5 minutes that's in there. I know we're well over time today. I just wanted to thank everybody for participating in the platform, kind of seeing everything in there. So, again, thank you. I just put a poll out there. If there's anybody wants to answer that. If not, we'll send out the replay. And again, thank you all for participating in this event. And have a great day. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you. I'm going to keep this up just for a minute so people can answer the questions.